The Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development has organized a pre-conference on language in education this morning to discuss its implementation in the new curriculum. Let's cross over there and listen in.
You get into class. I don't know whether Professor Miguda Tiang also went through another school. You are getting into a situation where the first time you are meeting this language of instruction is in class 1. And you are supposed to sing the songs in English. You are supposed to do the alphabet in English. 3 years later, you are supposed to translate it to English. You are in class, somebody is speaking that language, Ongondo, but the moment you are talking to your friend next to you, you are pinching that somebody next to you, not in English, but in your mother tongue. When you go out to play in the playing field and to share the roast maize that you came with from home, you don't do it in that ex-colonial language you are learning in class, but you are doing it in what? Another language, a problem that is there. And this is because we have refused to accept the advice. The major shortcoming of this is that we have refused to accept the advice that it takes at least 6 to 8 years to develop the cognitive and academic language proficiency to support learning across the curriculum, so that a shift to ex-colonial language comes too soon and it yields too shallow a foundation of that ex-colonial language or English to support learning across the curriculum from our primary upwards and onwards. And the early switch has a shortcoming of impairing learning in the formative years and limits educational attainment at the end of the day. How many of us have colleagues whom we call failures at home? Failures because they failed at CPE during our days or KCPA and therefore could not proceed. Not because, if you look at it critically, not because they didn't have the brains, if you want to say that, but because they didn't know theta at theta equals array. At the end of the day, the language has really impaired them, because perhaps we switched so early. Transition was too early. Special pedagogical strategies that are required to smoothly transit to English and the teaching techniques like code switching or translanguaging that are supposed to be there may have not been brought on board. The third perspective on this is a perspective where we are talking about using indigenous language as a medium of instruction. You may want to relate it to what the UNESCO and others have called mother tongue-based perspective in a multilingual environment. This one, according to experts, is the one that is based on major findings. It supports a mother tongue-based multilingual education for basic education, and then subsequently will transit to a higher level. It is one where learners have the right of access to the school curriculum in the indigenous languages and get quality English language experience. So English is taught and taught very well. But what is crucial is what came out of a research by what they call the Save the Child Foundation in 2014, and they observed how language is used in schools for delivering curriculum is an important factor in whether or not children succeed in education. They gave instances where in sub-Saharan Africa, we had children who were not doing well because the language that they was used was not working. They also realized that whether or not a child is taught in their first language or mother tongue often has a strong effect on whether or not the child attends school, particularly in rural areas. The language used to deliver the school curriculum pulls down the educational performance of many of those who do not use it at home, particularly those who do not have a regular access to it outside the school. For children who manage to stay in education, there is a strong negative impact on achievement if their first language is not used for teaching and learning. In a way, these people were arguing for indigenous languages to be used in early years of education. It is research that is informing this. It's not just coming out of perceptions. It's not coming out of some attitude. Indigenous languages are very, very important. Very important, and that's why perhaps those of you who have been keen, you'll notice that they are carriers of rare indigenous knowledge. Rare indigenous knowledge. If you're talking about the Kisi people and the Marakwet in this country, we have surgeons who can open up your brain, your skull. Indigenous language. Very nice herbalists among them. And that knowledge on how they do it is not kept or passed across in any foreign language. The Nandi rainmaker, starting with my vice chancellor, he may have learned about rainmaking, not in English, but he could have learned that in Kinandi. The Tugen, the people who forecast the weather using what the intestines of goats, indigenous language. Its indigenous languages are the carriers of this indigenous knowledge that is very crucial for anything that is called scientific innovations and the like, over and above what we also learn from school. And it's perhaps because of this that UNESCO declared 2006 the International Year of African Languages, and as you are aware, we are in the International Year of Indigenous Languages. This year, 2019, is the year of the International Year of Indigenous Languages. Colleagues, if you didn't know, have we ever asked ourselves some of the strategies that people who have participated and won the entire world and colonized the entire world, the strategies they used? They had to understand us, and they understood us in our languages, if you didn't know. For example, a week ago I said I was traveling from somewhere. What they call Afrikanistik in German, with a K, Afrikanistik with a K, everything is K, is nothing but language, literature, and culture.
Still on matters education, stakeholders in the education sector are holding a national conference focusing on the recent reforms in the education sector. The meeting bringing together teachers' representatives, religious leaders and human rights activists is expected to address the CBC's stalemate and other issues affecting the education sector in the country. Let's listen in. All right, it is live there. Education stakeholders holding a national conference focusing on recent reforms in the education sector. It is a meeting likely to bring together representatives of teachers, religious leaders from across the country, as well as human rights activists to address, among other issues, the stalemate surrounding the competence-based curriculum and other issues affecting the education sector. Recently, we've seen a spat there between the Teachers Service Commission and the Kenya National Union of Teachers, mostly of implementation of the collective bargaining agreement there, an issue that has been one of contention for quite a while now. Teachers asking not just for better pay, but the employment of more teachers as well. We'll be taking you back there. Reporter Mary Moki is also keeping an eye on the situation.